My name is Michael Reed. I'm 41. That morning, everything ended with a single video. My phone lit up with unknown number. The message was just a link, small, innocuous looking. I opened it. On the screen was Elena, laughing, arm around David's waist. David, the guy I'd known since we were kids, the one who stood up at my wedding, the one I trusted more than most. They were in a hotel room. They were smiling like they'd been given permission to be happy, like the last 12 years of my life were nothing but a footnote. At first I felt nothing. My heart didn't race. My lungs kept working. A hollow opened up inside me. No noise, no images, just this cold, methodical clarity. I didn't shout. I didn't call anyone. I muted the phone, closed the link, poured my coffee. Every move I made looked ordinary, but inside everything had shifted. Elena came home smiling, hair damp from the rain. "Morning," she said, like it was any other day. Her face had the same expression from the video. People don't always realize this. You can read someone's life in the way they smile. I looked at her and felt like I was reading a ledger. "Yeah," I said. "Morning." I took my coffee and went into the kitchen. She glanced at my phone but didn't open it. The only thing I wanted to say was one word. "Okay." But I didn't say it. Shock didn't last long. It was replaced by a strange, precise energy. Revenge stopped being an emotion and became a job. How would I do it? When? Which moves would force a mistake? It all organized itself in my head like a set of equations. I decided then, I wouldn't yell, I wouldn't accuse. I'd plan. Quietly, coldly, I'd create a situation where the truth would do the work for me. I went through the day like nothing had happened. I went to the office, sat in meetings, made small talk in the break room. But my mind never left home. I checked accounts, traced reservations, scanned receipts. I blew up the hotel logo from the video and stretched the timeline. Elena's new job name, David's license plate, dates on the receipts. The dots started joining themselves. That evening there was a note on the table. Meeting ran late. Might not be home until late, it said. Short, polite, indifferent. A lie. I folded the slip and slid it into my wallet, a reminder that every lie carries a price. I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and counted cracks as if each one held a memory. I thought about what we'd shared, photos, half-finished projects, that stupid old lamp we'd bought on our first trip. Those things turned sterile under this new light. Revenge in my head stopped being a scream and became a scalpel. Clean, deliberate, controlled. A war that starts in silence. The next morning I didn't go to work. I parked a few blocks away and watched. Elena's routine was predictable. Spin class, brunch, the office. David's habits were different, but visible. Coffee at the same place, a late afternoon round of golf, then Elena. Where people are comfortable, they make mistakes. I planned to be there when they did. For 2 weeks I gave no sign. I kept smiling at family events, made jokes at dinner, showed up at my daughter's school functions like a dad who had no idea anything had changed. From the outside, nothing was different. Inside, a clock was ticking. I cataloged bank transfers, dug through old emails, matched timestamps from the video with entries on their cards. I scraped every photo on David's social media and logged every date. Each piece of information was a lock that would later guarantee the next move. One night, Elena's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. A text from David. "Same place tomorrow at 10, with a heart emoji. I closed my eyes and breathed. I smiled. That trivial message was evidence. Phase 1 was complete. Shock, acceptance, quiet preparation. Next, I would document, secure, and time everything so the trap closed by itself. By then, the idea of revenge had stopped being about hurt. It was a lesson to be taught. Every casual lie she'd slipped between us, every secret phone call, every shared look, it would all become currency against them. I opened a new file on my laptop and wrote 2 words at the top. Phase 1. My hands didn't shake. Inside me, a storm brewed, but my face was a sheet of ice. Elena, David, whatever remained of us, each would be catalogued, organized, and used. When I left the house that morning, I left it the same as always. The coffee mug on the counter, the photo of my daughter in a cheap frame, a life that looked intact. But I walked out different. Shock had turned into a cold, surgical patience. And the sentence that had played in my head since watching that video kept looping like a command. Tonight, you're still my wife. But tonight is the last night. They say revenge is poison. Whoever said that never met me. After I watched the video, after that quiet, obscene little clip of Elena laughing in a hotel room with David, my life stopped being a life and started being a ledger. At first, it was just notes, scribbles on napkins, times, places, little details my brain wouldn't let go of. But the notes grew into a map. I taped screenshots to the wall behind my office bookshelf, red thread connecting dates to receipts, phone pings to hotel logos. Elena's smile from the footage, cropped and printed in grayscale, sat beside David's face like 2 crime scene photos. In the center, the hotel name, the address, room 217. I went to the hotel. It was smaller than I'd expected, the kind of place meant for business travel and cheap apologies. The lobby smelled faintly of the vanilla perfume she always swore she only used at home. The woman at the desk smiled the professional smile and asked if I was checking in. I told her no, I was just looking around. She hesitated, then by mistake assumed I was David. You were here last week, right? Same room, she said, and my blood turned cold in my veins in a way nothing else had. I didn't correct her. Why would I? The lie was theirs. Let them sleep in it. Room 217. I stood at that door and pressed my hand against the wood. It did not feel like my home. It felt like a wound. Down the hall, laughter leaked from behind another door, muffled, familiar sounding. For a second, the world shrank to that sound. The walls seemed to hum with what they'd already seen. When I left the hotel, I knew exactly what I had to do. They had taken my peace from me. And peace, my peace, doesn't come back by wishing. It comes back by work. Over the next days, my life turned surgical. I started small, cheap electronics. A GPS tracker slipped under David's car frame one night when he left it in the driveway after Thomas's BBQ. I watched the tracker feed the next morning while pretending to read the paper at my kitchen table. I remembered the 4-digit PIN Elena used for everything, the year of her father's birth, because she'd always said it out loud one drunk Thanksgiving when we argued about passwords. That memory slipped open doors, her location history, calendar entries that didn't match the long meetings she'd tell me about, little purchases charged to a card I'd never seen. And then I found the lease. Anna Quinn, 3 months, signed at an apartment a few blocks from the river. David listed as the emergency contact. A different name, a different address, a fake life layered under the one I thought we had built. Suddenly, this wasn't a fling taped and sent like a prank. This was construction. They were building a future together. Without me, without my daughter. I felt different then, like I'd been rewired. My hands shook for the first time, not from anger, but from a focused awareness that felt almost clinical. Rage had sharpened into something that looked like patience. I parked across from that apartment at dusk and watched the windows light one by one. At 8:37, a light came on in the bedroom. Silhouettes moved. Music played somewhere inside that I could not hear. Maybe it was a soft song we'd once danced to at our wedding. I sat there until the bars on my phone's battery ran low, writing times, writing when the light went out, and when it came back on, what time she laughed. I recorded everything like a juror who knew the verdict before the trial started. Phase 1, the shock, the collection, closed there, on the curb across from someone else's life. I drove home and looked at myself in the rearview mirror and did not recognize the man staring back. He was calm in a way that scared me. Not the heat of a man about to break, but the cold steadiness of a man who'd buried the part of himself that wanted to forgive. I started cataloging everything. Receipts, hotel logos blown up until the pixels became legible. Credit card transactions that matched the timestamps from that damned video. Old emails where she'd used different names. I pulled up David's social accounts and downloaded every picture with Elena in it. Date stamps became my Bible. Each entry was a lock. The more locks I collected, the more unassailable the case I was building. There's a quiet cruelty in watching people make the same mistakes when they think they've already won. Comfort breeds sloppiness. People let their guards down. They leave breadcrumbs. For 2 weeks, I showed the world a practiced normalcy. I made jokes over dinner. I went to my daughter's PTA meetings. I acted like a man whose home was whole. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, I was a clockwork that ticked toward a single purpose. One night, Elena's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. A text from David. "Same spot tomorrow at 10?" Followed by a heart emoji. I closed my eyes, breathed, and smiled. That trivial little string of characters was evidence. Small, stupid, intimate trash they'd left in the digital alleyway. It told me where they planned to meet, and it told me how careless they could be when they felt safe. That's when the blueprint became real. I opened a new file on my laptop, titled it simply, Phase 1. Under it, I listed times, names, purchase codes, lease numbers. I attached copies of the video I'd saved, the hotel confirmation, a screenshot of the text with the heart. My hands didn't tremble as I typed. Inside me, a storm roared, but my face was a sheet of ice. My voice would stay quiet because quietness is a hammer with a longer swing. This was no longer about humiliation or heartbreak. It was about restoration. They had carved a little world away from mine, packed it with light and laughter and plans, and left me standing in the rain. I would not scream until they bled. I would tighten the screws until the structure they built collapsed under its own lies. The work would be methodical. The trap would not be flashy. It would be inevitable. When I finally closed my laptop that night, I did not sleep like someone who's won. I slept like someone who has set a fuse and knows the burn time down to the second. The blueprint sat on my desk: photographs, dates, printed receipts, a small GPS feed tied to a cheap tracker under a truck. Elena and David had carved out a life for themselves in the margins. I would show them how quickly margins are erased when someone knows the math of betrayal. And in the quiet before dawn, when the house was still and the dog slept with a soft snore at the foot of my bed, I whispered a promise that sounded nothing like a prayer. It sounded like an address. Phase 1, I said to the room. Complete. The first time I broke into David's office, it didn't even feel illegal. It felt necessary, like walking into a church to confess. I knew his schedule down to the minute. He always left for lunch at 12:40, always ordered the same overpriced salad, always stayed out for exactly 40 minutes, scrolling through emails on his phone like a man too busy to live. That gave me 27 minutes of silence and opportunity. The office smelled like cedar and arrogance. Everything was too neat, too clean, the kind of place where secrets should never live. But they did. The walls practically whispered them. I sat in his leather chair, leaned back, and let the room swallow me. I wondered how many times she'd stood right where I was, maybe touching the same desk, maybe laughing at the same jokes. My hand brushed across the surface and found a faint lipstick stain near the edge. Elena's shade. I knew it instantly. It hit me harder than the video ever had. That's when the idea was born, the mirror plan. Not just revenge. Reflection. I wasn't going to destroy David by rage or bullets or noise. Number. I was going to let him see himself, his greed, his deceit, his rot through the same mirror he'd cracked in me. The first step was digital. I mirrored his world online. I created a fake LinkedIn profile, a fake name, a fake company that didn't exist, North Vale Strategies. A consulting firm with open positions, promising insane salaries and confidential international clients. I crafted emails with the precision of a surgeon, every word dripping with authenticity. Then I baited the hook. David bit in 2 hours. His reply was full of ego and desperation, the same tone he used when he pitched investors years ago, the same tone that probably fooled Elena, too. He thought he was being recruited. He thought he was winning. But all I was doing was recording every word, watching him boast about projects he hadn't led, numbers he hadn't earned. Lies layered on top of lies. Every message was another brick in the wall I was building around him. Next, I mirrored his habits offline. He had a gym routine, same nights, same locker, same trainer. So I joined. Different time slot, same eyes on him. I watched him laugh, stretch, take selfies in the mirror like a man proud of his reflection. He had no idea that reflection already belonged to me. I started dressing like him subtly, not enough for anyone to notice, but enough for me to feel it. Same kind of shirts, same cologne, same watch brand, cheap knockoff version. I'd look in the mirror and see not just myself, but him, the man who wrecked my family. And you know what's strange? At some point the line started to blur. When I saw him through the glass, moving with that fake confidence, I wasn't sure if I hated him or the part of me that used to believe in him. Maybe they were the same thing now. Maybe that's what betrayal does, it fuses you to your enemy in ways you can't unbind. A week later, I decided to test the reflection. I sent him an anonymous message, short, sharp, untraceable. You don't deserve what's coming, but you earned it. He showed up to work late the next day. He looked over his shoulder every few minutes. He called Elena twice before noon. I know because I was watching. Always watching. It wasn't about fear yet. It was about presence. I wanted him to feel me like a ghost pressing against the back of his neck. To realize that someone, somewhere, knew. Not who, not when, just knew. One night, around 2 a.m., I drove past the apartment near the river. Their lights were off. I parked down the street and stared at the reflection of the building in the water. Every window shimmered on the surface like eyes. For a second, I imagined walking up those stairs, knocking on the door, and ending it right there. But that would have been mercy, and mercy wasn't part of the plan. The mirror plan wasn't about blood. It was about distortion, making them see themselves through my pain, making them question every smile, every touch, every word. They'd built a world on trust. I would flood it with doubt. That night I went home and stood in front of my bathroom mirror. The light flickered overhead, humming low and steady. My reflection stared back, tired eyes, cracked lips, a man hollowed out but alive in the wrong ways. And I smiled. Because in that reflection, I didn't just see Michael anymore. I saw the man David was becoming. And I knew, soon enough, he'd see it too. It began with a single keystroke. I'd spent nights digging through data, linking accounts, tracing emails. David's company had weak security. One of his assistants used the same password for everything, birth date plus exclamation mark at the end. It took me 30 minutes to get into the system. Another 10 to find what I needed. Contracts, client lists, evidence of the quiet fraud David had been running behind his partners' backs. Money funneled through shell accounts, fake invoices, fake charities. I didn't need to expose it. Not yet. I needed to make him believe it was about to happen. So I sent him an email from an address that didn't exist anymore, carved in digital ash. You built your kingdom on lies. Watch how fast it burns. Then I watched. That morning he skipped work, then the next day. He called Elena 16 times in 1 hour. She didn't answer after the 5th. Their perfect little world was cracking, and I didn't even have to lift a weapon. But it wasn't just him I wanted to crumble. It was her. Elena. I left a note on her windshield, handwritten, just 2 words. He's lying. No signature, no trace, just ink and fear. That's all it takes sometimes. A week later, I saw her sitting in her car outside their apartment, crying into her hands while David yelled through the open window. It wasn't guilt I felt watching them. It was balance. The scales finally moving. But balance is a dangerous thing. Once it tips too far, it doesn't stop. That night, I followed David to a bar on the east side. He was drunk, mean, unsteady, the kind of man who thinks alcohol makes him invisible. He called a friend, someone named Tom, told him someone was watching him, that he felt hunted. Tom laughed it off. David didn't. I waited until he stumbled out to the parking lot, keys in hand, breathing hard. Then I stepped out of the shadows and said his name. He froze, turned. "Michael," he said, voice breaking in disbelief. "What the hell? You look tired," I told him. "Rough week?" His eyes darted everywhere. He knew. Somewhere deep inside, he already knew. I could see the realization crawling up his spine like static. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. I stepped closer, slow, deliberate. "Nothing you haven't already taken." For a second, I thought he might swing. He didn't. He just stood there, shaking, small, pathetic. A man cornered not by violence, but by his own reflection. "Stay away from her," he said finally. I smiled. "From Elena?" His face twisted. "You're sick." "Maybe," I said. "But I learned from the best." And then I walked away. Didn't threaten him, didn't touch him, didn't have to. Because that's the thing about control. It's not about what you do. It's about what they think you'll do next. The next morning, the news broke. David's company was under investigation. Anonymous leaks, corrupted files. He was suspended pending review. The mirror plan had done its job. He was unraveling from the inside out. And Elena, poor, beautiful Elena, was alone again. But here's the truth no one tells you about revenge. Once you get it, it doesn't end. It echoes. It follows you home. It stares at you from the dark corners of your mind, whispering, "Do you feel better now?" I didn't. Not yet. Because this was never just about him. Or her. It was about me. And the man in the mirror still wasn't finished speaking. Revenge isn't clean. It isn't poetic. It isn't the kind of thing you read about in novels or see in movies where the hero stands tall, chest heaving, after the villain falls. Revenge is slow, methodical. It creeps under your skin until it becomes part of your DNA. 43 days. 43 days of watching, calculating, and waiting. Every move David made, every little lie Elena whispered, I tracked it all. Their perfect little life, collapsing piece by piece, and I was the quiet architect. The whispers of their happiness had become echoes of their own undoing. David had been fired, suspended while his company investigated fraud and embezzlement. I had leaked anonymous tips, disguised and untraceable, the kind that hit him like a heart attack. Elena, gone. She moved states away, trying to erase herself from the mess she helped create. Or maybe she was just running. Either way, I didn't care anymore. Not really. I drove back to the hotel where it all began. Room 217. The room smelled the same. Stale perfume, cheap vanilla air freshener, a faint trace of laughter I could almost hear if I pressed my ear against the wall. I wanted to see it, to stand in the same space they had made their sanctuary, their betrayal. The mirror above the desk caught my reflection first, and I didn't like what I saw. The eyes weren't mine anymore. They were sharp, cold, calculating. Eyes that had learned to wait. Eyes that had learned to destroy without moving a muscle. I didn't just see Michael anymore. I saw the man David had become, and I realized I'd become him too. For a long time, I just stared. I thought of my daughter, of her trusting eyes, of the nights I told her I was tired when really I was furious. I told myself I was doing this for her, that I was protecting her world. But now I knew the truth. This wasn't protection. It was obsession. I pulled out my laptop. Phase 1. The folder with every file I had gathered. Videos, screenshots, hotel bookings, GPS trackers, credit card statements, every proof of their lies and betrayal. I stared at it. All that power, all that control. And then I deleted it. Every single file. Gone. The satisfaction I thought I would feel didn't come. Instead, a hollow emptiness replaced it, a silence louder than any scream. Because the truth is, revenge isn't a trophy. It doesn't end with a man or woman crushed beneath your plan. It ends with the reflection staring back at you, asking, "Who are you now?" And then the knock came. I froze. The sound echoed in the hotel room like a gunshot. No one was there, only an envelope lying neatly on the floor. I picked it up, hands steady, though my stomach dropped into my boots. Inside, a single photograph, black and white, grainy. Me, sitting in my car, across from their old apartment, watching. Every detail caught in the lens. On the back, 4 words in handwriting I didn't recognize. "You're not done yet." And then the air shifted. I realized someone had been watching me all along. Someone who had studied my patterns, mirrored my movements, and now was turning the game back on me. The mirror plan wasn't just my trap anymore. I was in the center of a circle that had no edge. I laughed. Softly at first, then louder. Because maybe this was how it always had to end, not with closure, not with peace, not with justice, but with the certainty that someone, somewhere, was keeping score. Someone else would take up the torch, and the echoes of control would keep bouncing back into the dark. I walked out into the night. Quiet. Still. The streets glimmered under the streetlights, wet from an afternoon rain. I caught my reflection in the glass doors of a convenience store. Behind it, a shadow flickered for a split second. Someone there, following, watching, waiting. I smiled, because finally I understood. No one escapes the mirror. No one ever does. And somewhere in another city, another inbox would light up with a message waiting, a warning disguised as a threat. You don't deserve what's coming, but you earned it. The cycle wouldn't end. Not really. And I didn't want it to. I was Michael, the ghost in the reflection. The man who learned that revenge isn't about pain. It's about presence. And now my presence would be felt forever. As I walked into the darkness, the river glimmered nearby. My reflection caught once more in its surface. I saw myself, a man forged in betrayal, tempered by obsession, and sharpened by the echoes of control. I didn't look back, because the last reflection is never truly gone. Fade to black,